It began as a hushed conversation behind Kensington Palace walls that aides tried to downplay and courtiers quickly silenced. But the look on Princess Catherine's face as she exited that private meeting said everything the palace couldn't. Something was wrong, and it involved Charlotte. What was first dismissed as a rumor soon turned into a royal firestorm, now confirmed by the very people who fought to protect it. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The morning had reportedly begun like countless others inside the royal household. Meetings were scheduled, official duties were being prepared, and palace operations appeared to be moving forward as normal. Yet behind closed doors, away from public appearances and carefully managed statements, a gathering was taking place that would soon leave senior figures deeply unsettled. Reports suggest Princess Catherine had been summoned to a confidential discussion involving Prince William and a small circle of trusted palace advisors. Such meetings were not unusual in themselves. What made this one different was the extraordinary level of secrecy surrounding it. According to royal insiders, the atmosphere inside that private discussion quickly became tense when an unexpected proposal was quietly placed before Catherine. At first, the request seemed almost impossible to believe. Various interpretations of the meeting suggest that the matter was presented delicately, wrapped in language designed to avoid immediate confrontation. But beneath the careful wording was a demand that struck at something deeply personal. It was not simply another disagreement about protocol or public appearances. It was something much bigger, something that touched the future of Princess Charlotte and the legacy she might one day inherit. Sources familiar with palace affairs claim the proposal did not emerge from official royal channels. Instead, whispers began, pointing toward individuals connected to Queen Camilla's inner circle. The suggestion alone was enough to send shockwaves through private conversations among staff members. Some believed it was merely a misunderstanding. Others feared it represented the opening move in a much larger struggle that had been quietly developing behind the scenes for months. As details were explained, Catherine reportedly became increasingly disturbed. Those who later observed her leaving the meeting described a woman carrying the weight of information she never expected to hear. For years, Catherine had built a reputation for remaining composed under extraordinary pressure. Yet, this situation appeared different. The implications extended beyond her own position and directly toward the future of her daughter. That reality reportedly transformed concern into determination almost immediately. The moment William became fully aware of the situation, emergency discussions were said to have begun. Insiders claim the Prince of Wales recognized the seriousness of the issue at once. What had started as a confidential conversation was rapidly evolving into a matter that could affect relationships at the highest levels of the monarchy. While official silence remained firmly in place, palace staff reportedly sensed a shift. Conversations became shorter. Meetings became more frequent. Questions that normally received quick answers were suddenly met with careful avoidance. Meanwhile, media insiders who had been observing unusual developments for weeks began connecting pieces that previously made little sense. Several commentators later suggested that subtle signs of tension had been visible long before this meeting ever occurred. Small changes in schedules, unexpected consultations, and an unusual level of discretion surrounding Charlotte had all attracted quiet attention. At the time, few understood their significance. Now, however, those scattered clues appeared to point toward a single unfolding story. The deeper Catherine and William looked into the matter, the more troubling it reportedly became. What initially appeared to be a private request seemed connected to a broader question about influence, legacy, and the future direction of the royal family itself. And as more information surfaced, one thing became increasingly clear. This controversy was not going to remain hidden forever. But the chilling truth wasn't just about Charlotte's health. It was tied to a royal legacy that had long been buried until now. For years, certain royal matters remained hidden behind locked doors and carefully guarded traditions. But according to insiders, one private request crossed a line many believed should never be touched, and it carried consequences no one expected. As questions surrounding that confidential meeting continued to grow, attention slowly shifted toward the issue that had reportedly sparked the entire controversy. What exactly had Catherine been told? Why had palace advisors reacted with such urgency? And why were senior figures suddenly treating what appeared to be a private family matter as a potential institutional crisis? The answers, according to royal insiders, lay within a demand so sensitive that even experienced courtiers hesitated to discuss it openly. Reports suggest that the request centered on Princess Charlotte and her future place within the monarchy. While details remained carefully guarded, various sources claimed the matter involved a symbolic royal inheritance, something far more significant than material wealth or ceremonial privilege. For generations, certain traditions had been viewed as untouchable, passed forward according to long-established expectations that connected one generation of royals to the next. According to whispers emerging from within palace circles, that sacred understanding had suddenly been challenged. The alleged demand, insiders claim, originated from individuals closely associated with Camilla's inner circle. Whether the proposal was intended as a suggestion, a negotiation, or something more forceful remains the subject of intense speculation. What is clear, however, is that its implications reached far beyond a simple family disagreement. Some believed it represented an attempt to reshape a royal legacy that many assumed had already been settled. Others feared it could create divisions that would linger for years. When Catherine reportedly learned the full scope of what was being proposed, those familiar with the situation suggest she was left deeply stunned. Not because the request itself was impossible, but because of what it represented. The issue touched principles she had spent years respecting and protecting. Throughout her time within the royal family, Catherine had carefully balanced tradition with modern expectations. Yet this situation reportedly placed those values into direct conflict. It was no longer merely about preserving harmony. It had become a question of responsibility. Within palace offices, reactions were said to be sharply divided. Some advisors believed the matter should be quietly accommodated in order to prevent public tension. Others argued that accepting such a proposal could establish a precedent with far-reaching consequences. The disagreement created an atmosphere of uncertainty unlike anything seen in recent years. Meetings became longer, discussions became more intense. Every possible outcome appeared to carry risks. As debate continued, senior courtiers reportedly began issuing warnings behind closed doors. According to several royal correspondents, concerns were raised about the possibility of lasting family fallout. Relationships that had remained stable for years could be tested. Alliances could shift. Trust could be damaged. What initially appeared to be a private request was now threatening to evolve into something much larger. Outside palace walls, whispers began finding their way into royal media circles. Journalists who specialized in royal affairs started hearing fragments of the story from separate sources. At first, the reports seemed too extraordinary to be believed. Yet as more details emerged, a pattern became impossible to ignore. Conversations that had once been confined to private rooms were slowly spreading outward, drawing attention from individuals eager to understand what was truly happening behind the scenes. For Catherine, the growing speculation only increased the pressure. Every new rumor seemed to reinforce the gravity of the situation. Every warning from advisors underscored what was at stake. The demand itself was controversial enough, but the larger issue was becoming impossible to escape. A decision would eventually have to be made. And when that moment arrived, it would reveal far more than anyone's expected about the future balance of influence within the royal family. As details spread through the palace corridors, Catherine faced a choice that would define her standing inside the monarchy. Many expected diplomacy. Others expected delay. What nobody anticipated was the speed and determination with which Princess Catherine would respond once she understood exactly what was being asked. As the controversy continued to expand behind closed doors, Catherine reportedly withdrew from the growing noise and focused on understanding every detail of the situation for herself. The rumors, the warnings, the conflicting advice. None of it mattered unless she could determine exactly what was at stake. According to those familiar with the matter, she spent days quietly reviewing information, listening carefully to trusted voices, and examining the implications from every possible angle. This was no longer simply about managing a sensitive family disagreement. The issue had evolved into something far more consequential. It touched tradition, responsibility, and the future path of a young royal whose life would inevitably be shaped by decisions made today. The deeper Catherine looked, the more troubling the situation reportedly became. What initially appeared to be a request involving symbolic inheritance began revealing broader implications that few had considered at first. Every conversation seemed to uncover another layer. Every explanation raised new concerns. While some advisors encouraged compromise, others warned that the consequences of yielding could extend far beyond the immediate controversy. The pressure surrounding the decision continued to grow, but so did Catherine's understanding of what was truly being asked of her. Throughout this period, one figure remained firmly at her side. Reports suggest that Prince William quickly became Catherine's strongest source of support. Those close to palace operations claim the Prince of Wales viewed the matter with the same seriousness she did. Rather than encouraging caution for the sake of peace, he reportedly focused on protecting principles he believed should not be compromised. Together, they examined the issue from every angle, discussing not only the immediate consequences, but also the precedent such a decision could establish for future generations. As their discussions continued, trusted advisors were brought into increasingly intense consultations. Palace officials, constitutional experts, and longtime royal aides reportedly found themselves drawn into conversations that stretched far beyond the original request. Opinions remained divided. Some believed a carefully negotiated solution could prevent lasting damage. Others argued that hesitation itself carried risks. The longer uncertainty remained, the more opportunity there was for speculation, division, and misunderstanding to spread throughout the institution. Yet, amid the growing complexity, Catherine's own position gradually became clearer. According to insiders, a defining moment arrived when she stopped viewing the matter as a question of convenience and began viewing it as a question of duty. That changed everything. The uncertainty that had surrounded the early days of the controversy reportedly gave way to a sense of calm determination. While others debated strategy, Catherine focused on principle. While others worried about political consequences, she concentrated on what she believed was right. Palace insiders later described her demeanor during this period as remarkably composed. There were no dramatic confrontations, no emotional outbursts, and no signs of panic. Instead, they spoke of a figure who had carefully weighed every possibility and reached a firm conclusion. The contrast was striking. The same woman who had reportedly left the original meeting visibly shaken was now approaching the challenge with unwavering resolve. The fear and uncertainty that had initially surrounded the issue were slowly being replaced by confidence. That confidence soon began influencing those around her. Advisors who had once questioned how the situation would unfold reportedly started recognizing that Catherine had already made her decision. The remaining discussions were no longer about whether she would respond. They were about how that response would be delivered and what consequences might follow once it became known. Behind the scenes, preparations quietly began. Conversations shifted from analysis to action. Trusted figures coordinated strategies. Potential reactions were evaluated. Every step suggested that a direct response was now inevitable. What had started as a secret proposal hidden within palace walls was moving steadily toward a moment that could alter relationships throughout the royal household. Yet Catherine's answer would not remain private for long, because events were already moving far beyond palace walls. The atmosphere inside the palace reportedly turned icy as key figures gathered for a meeting few expected to become so consequential. What happened next left even veteran staff members stunned. By the time senior members of the royal household were brought together, weeks of uncertainty had already transformed a private concern into a growing internal crisis. Rumors had circulated, warnings had been exchanged, positions had quietly hardened. What remained unclear was how the matter would ultimately be resolved. According to those familiar with the situation, the meeting was intended to provide exactly that answer. Yet few who entered those discussions fully appreciated how dramatically the course of events was about to change. Reports suggest that representatives from several corners of the royal establishment were present as the issue was finally addressed directly. For many, the expectation was simple. They believed Catherine would seek a compromise. Others assumed additional delays would follow while advisors searched for a solution that could satisfy everyone involved. After all, preserving harmony had long been one of the monarchy's most valuable tools. Avoiding open division was often considered just as important as resolving disagreements themselves. But on this occasion, those assumptions reportedly proved completely wrong. When the moment arrived, Catherine is said to have delivered her position with remarkable clarity. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty, no attempt to soften the principles that had guided her decision. According to palace insiders, she explained that certain responsibilities carried obligations that could not simply be adjusted to suit changing circumstances. The issue, in her view, was larger than personal preferences or private requests. It concerned continuity, duty, and the preservation of traditions that connected generations of the royal family. What had begun weeks earlier as a question had now become an answer. For some inside the room, the response reportedly came as a surprise. For others, it was a shock. Sources claim that individuals who had expected negotiations suddenly realized Catherine had already moved beyond that stage. The decision had been made. More importantly, she appeared fully prepared to defend it regardless of the reaction it might provoke. The uncertainty that had once surrounded her position was gone. In its place stood a confidence that immediately altered the tone of the entire discussion. According to various accounts, Camilla was among those caught off guard by the firmness of Catherine's stance. Whether she expected resistance remains unclear, but insiders suggest the directness of the response changed the dynamics of the meeting almost instantly. What had once seemed like a matter still open for debate was now facing a determined obstacle. The proposal that had generated weeks of behind-the-scenes discussion was encountering a level of opposition few had anticipated. Throughout the exchange, William reportedly remained unwavering in his support. Those familiar with palace affairs claim his presence reinforced Catherine's position at every stage. Together, they presented a united front that left little room for misunderstanding. Their shared commitment reportedly carried significant influence among those observing the discussion. Advisors who had remained uncertain suddenly found themselves viewing the issue through a different lens. As debate continued, several officials are said to have voiced support for Catherine's reasoning. Their arguments centered on stability, precedent, and the long-term consequences of altering expectations surrounding royal legacy. While not everyone agreed, the growing support around Catherine reportedly shifted momentum in her favor. The more the discussion unfolded, the more difficult it became to dismiss the concerns she had raised from the beginning. Yet support did not eliminate tension. If anything, it intensified it. Emotions reportedly ran high as competing perspectives collided. Long-standing relationships were tested. Private frustrations surfaced. The divide that had once existed quietly beneath the surface was now impossible to ignore. For many observers, it was one of the most significant internal disagreements they had witnessed in years. And while the meeting itself eventually came to an end, the controversy was far from resolved. In fact, the consequences were only beginning to emerge. Because even as discussions concluded behind closed doors, whispers about what had happened were already spreading beyond the people who had witnessed it firsthand. But the confrontation was only the beginning, because word of the disagreement was already finding its way beyond the palace gates. Once whispers become conversations and conversations become headlines, control becomes almost impossible. That is exactly the situation the royal household suddenly found itself facing. What had started as a confidential disagreement inside palace walls was no longer confined to private discussions. In the days following the reported confrontation, fragments of information began circulating through royal circles with remarkable speed. At first, the details remained vague. There were only hints of tension, suggestions of a disagreement, and quiet claims that an important decision had divided influential figures within the monarchy. But as often happens in royal affairs, silence created curiosity, and curiosity quickly fueled speculation. According to insiders, palace staff were among the first to begin discussing Catherine's position. Not openly and certainly not officially, but through the quiet exchanges that naturally emerge whenever a major event unsettles the established order. Those familiar with the atmosphere at the time described a growing sense of admiration for the way she had handled the situation. While opinions differed regarding the controversy itself, many reportedly agreed on one point. Catherine had demonstrated remarkable composure under extraordinary pressure. That perception soon extended beyond palace corridors. Royal insiders who had spent years observing the inner workings of the institution began offering their own interpretations. Some suggested that Catherine's response reflected a deeper understanding of royal responsibility. Others viewed it as a defining test of character. Regardless of their perspective, many appeared impressed by her ability to remain calm while navigating one of the most sensitive challenges of her public life. The woman who had entered the controversy under immense pressure was increasingly being viewed as someone capable of leading through it. As whispers continued spreading, public interest began growing at a pace few anticipated. Royal commentators started examining every available detail. Newspapers and television discussions explored the possible implications. Online conversations multiplied. What made the story especially compelling was the uncertainty surrounding it. People sensed that something important had happened, yet the full picture remained just beyond reach. That mystery only intensified the fascination. Soon, analysts and royal observers found themselves debating the broader significance of the dispute. Was it simply a family disagreement that had attracted unusual attention? Or did it reveal something larger about the future direction of the monarchy? The questions multiplied with every passing day. Some argued the controversy highlighted a generational shift in influence. Others suggested it exposed deeper tensions that had existed beneath the surface for years. Whatever the explanation, few dismissed the matter as insignificant. Meanwhile, reports suggested Catherine's popularity was quietly rising. Supporters praised what they perceived as strength, consistency, and commitment to principle. The contrast between uncertainty and conviction became a recurring theme in public discussions. Many observers believed she had faced a difficult choice and remained steadfast despite intense pressure. That perception only strengthened her standing among those already inclined to view her favorably. Yet where support grows, opposition often follows. According to various accounts, individuals sympathetic to Camilla's position began attempting to reshape the narrative. Explanations emerged. Alternative interpretations circulated. Some sought to minimize the significance of the disagreement altogether, while others argued that important details were being misunderstood. These efforts created competing versions of the story, each attempting to influence public perception before the full truth could emerge. The result was a royal household facing a challenge far more complicated than the original dispute itself. The controversy was no longer being managed internally. It had entered the court of public opinion, where every rumor carried weight and every unanswered question generated new theories. The struggle over influence, legacy, and principle was unfolding on a much larger stage than anyone had anticipated. And while attention remained focused on Catherine and Camilla, few realized that another figure was quietly observing the growing storm. A figure whose eventual involvement could change the direction of the entire controversy. Because as pressure mounted and speculation intensified, the story was approaching a turning point that would prove impossible to ignore. As public attention intensified, an even more important voice was preparing to enter the conversation. Here is Section 6, continuing directly from the previous section. Throughout the unfolding drama, one figure remained remarkably consistent. While others hesitated, Prince William appeared determined to ensure Catherine would not face the storm alone. As speculation intensified and competing narratives continued to circulate, attention increasingly turned toward the future king. For weeks, observers had focused primarily on Catherine's response and the controversy surrounding the original demand. Yet behind nearly every significant development stood William, quietly reinforcing the position that had now become central to the entire dispute. According to those familiar with the situation, his support never wavered. From the earliest private discussions to the growing public scrutiny that followed, he reportedly viewed the matter not as a temporary disagreement, but as a defining question about the values that would shape the monarchy moving forward. Insiders suggest that William's commitment carried enormous significance. Catherine's determination had already earned respect, but William's involvement transformed the issue into something much larger. No longer could the controversy be viewed solely through the lens of personal relationships or family tensions. With the heir to the throne firmly aligned beside Catherine, the dispute increasingly appeared connected to broader questions about leadership, responsibility, and the future direction of the institution itself. As the pressure mounted, the couple reportedly presented a remarkably united front. Those close to palace operations described an approach built on mutual trust and shared conviction. While external observers searched for signs of division or uncertainty, they found little evidence to support such theories. If anything, the controversy seemed to strengthen the partnership that had defined William and Catherine's public role for years. Every challenge they faced appeared to reinforce their reliance on one another. That growing sense of unity did not go unnoticed. Advisors who had spent years observing the inner workings of the royal household reportedly viewed the situation as a revealing moment. Many believed the controversy offered an early glimpse into how William and Catherine might handle future crises when even greater responsibilities eventually fall upon their shoulders. Their ability to remain coordinated amid intense pressure became a frequent topic of discussion among those closest to palace affairs. At the same time, comparisons to future leadership roles became increasingly difficult to avoid. Royal commentators began examining the situation through a wider historical lens. Some argued that moments of conflict often reveal qualities that remain hidden during periods of stability. Others suggested that the way William and Catherine approached the controversy demonstrated a willingness to prioritize principle over convenience. Whether those assessments were entirely accurate remained open to debate, but they contributed to a growing perception that the couple had emerged from the crisis stronger than before. Meanwhile, the palace itself reportedly became a landscape of shifting loyalties and quiet calculations. As the controversy evolved, individuals who had previously remained neutral found themselves gravitating toward one side or the other. Some aligned with Catherine's reasoning, others sympathized with alternative perspectives. What began as a disagreement over a specific issue was gradually exposing deeper divisions regarding the future balance of influence within the royal family. For Catherine, the effect was profound. The confidence she had displayed during the confrontation reportedly continued to grow as support around her strengthened. Knowing that William stood firmly beside her removed much of the uncertainty that had accompanied the early stages of the controversy. The burden she initially carried alone was now being shared. That reality allowed her to approach the ongoing situation with even greater resolve. Yet despite the growing support, the fundamental problem remained unresolved. Public interest continued to increase. Rumors continued to spread. Questions continued to multiply. The disagreement had expanded far beyond the individuals directly involved, and the consequences were becoming increasingly difficult to contain. Even William's steadfast support, powerful as it was, could not by itself bring the matter to a conclusion. Because ultimately, this was no longer just a family dispute. It had become a matter whose outcome could influence perceptions of authority, tradition, and leadership throughout the monarchy. And resolving something of that magnitude would require intervention from a level far above the conversations and alliances that had defined the conflict so far. But even with William's support secured, the controversy still required a resolution that only the highest levels of the monarchy could provide. Here is Section 7, continuing directly from the previous section. By the time the final decision arrived, anticipation had reached a fever pitch. Yet few could have predicted the outcome that reportedly left entire sections of the palace speechless. For weeks, uncertainty had dominated every stage of the controversy. Advisors had debated, courtiers had speculated, journalists had searched for answers. Supporters on every side had waited for a resolution that seemed constantly just out of reach. What began as a confidential request involving Charlotte's future had evolved into one of the most closely watched internal disputes in recent memory. By now, the issue had become far larger than its original details. It represented a test of influence, conviction, and authority at the very heart of the monarchy. According to royal insiders, the final phase of the process involved a review conducted by some of the most senior figures connected to palace affairs. The stakes could not have been higher. Every argument that had surfaced throughout the controversy was reportedly examined once more. Every concern was weighed. Every possible consequence was considered. Those familiar with the discussions claim the atmosphere surrounding these final deliberations was unlike anything many participants had experienced before. Everyone understood that the outcome would send a message far beyond the immediate dispute itself. As the review progressed, speculation reached extraordinary levels. Some believed compromise would ultimately prevail. Others expected a carefully crafted solution designed to satisfy all sides without producing clear winners or losers. Yet behind the scenes, momentum had reportedly begun shifting in a very different direction. The arguments Catherine had consistently presented from the beginning were now receiving increasing support. What had once seemed like a contested position was gradually becoming the foundation upon which the final decision would rest. Then came the moment many had been waiting for. According to multiple accounts, Catherine's position ultimately prevailed. The conclusion reportedly reflected the same principles she had defended throughout the controversy: continuity, responsibility, and respect for established traditions. While the specific details remained closely guarded, insiders claimed the decision left little ambiguity regarding which arguments had carried the greatest weight. After weeks of uncertainty, a clear outcome had finally emerged. For those who had supported Catherine's stance, the result was seen as a validation of her determination. She had faced enormous pressure, intense scrutiny, and growing public attention without retreating from her position. What initially appeared to some as a risky stand had ultimately shaped the final outcome. The significance of that achievement was not lost on those who had watched the situation unfold from the beginning. At the same time, reports suggested that the demand associated with Camilla's side of the dispute was effectively rejected. Whether that rejection came as a complete surprise remains unclear. However, sources claim many had expected a more balanced resolution. The firmness of the outcome reportedly exceeded what numerous observers anticipated. For some, it represented a decisive conclusion. For others, It marked a dramatic shift in palace dynamics. Courtiers who later discussed the matter described widespread surprise at the speed and clarity with which events ultimately concluded. Several insiders suggested the decision altered assumptions that had existed within palace circles for years. Individuals who once believed influence flowed primarily through traditional channels were suddenly forced to reassess the emerging reality. The controversy had revealed new centers of authority and new voices capable of shaping important outcomes. Among palace staff, Catherine reportedly emerged from the episode with significantly enhanced respect. Her willingness to stand firm under pressure became a recurring topic of conversation. Many viewed her conduct as measured, disciplined, and focused. Rather than being defined by the controversy, she appeared to have strengthened her reputation because of it. The challenge that could have damaged her standing instead seemed to reinforce it. Most importantly, the balance of influence inside the palace appeared to shift, not dramatically or overnight, but noticeably enough for experienced observers to recognize the change. Relationships remained intact, responsibilities remained unchanged, and official structures remained in place. Yet beneath the surface, perceptions had evolved. The events of the previous weeks had revealed who possessed influence, who commanded trust, and who could prevail when difficult choices had to be made. And as the dust began to settle, many realized this story had never been about a single request at all. Here is the final section, continuing directly from Section 7. What began as a secret demand had evolved into something far larger, a defining moment that many now believe revealed exactly what kind of queen Catherine may one day become. Looking back, it is remarkable how dramatically the story changed over the course of just a few weeks. What started as a confidential proposal discussed behind closed doors gradually transformed into a test of character, leadership, and conviction. At the center of it all stood Catherine, a figure who entered the controversy facing uncertainty, pressure, and intense scrutiny, yet emerged from it with a reputation strengthened rather than diminished. For many observers, that transformation became the true story. The original dispute mattered, of course, but the way Catherine responded to it ultimately carried even greater significance. Throughout the ordeal, she reportedly demonstrated qualities that supporters have long admired but rarely seen tested on such a public stage. Patience when emotions threatened to overwhelm reason. Restraint when others expected confrontation. Determination when compromise appeared easier. Again and again, she faced moments where retreat might have reduced immediate tension. Yet, according to those familiar with the situation, she remained focused on principles she believed were worth defending. That consistency became one of the defining features of the entire controversy. As the dust continued to settle, discussions increasingly shifted away from the details of the demand itself and toward broader questions about leadership. Royal commentators began reflecting on what the episode revealed about Catherine's approach to responsibility. Some argued that the controversy provided one of the clearest indications yet of how she might navigate future challenges. Others suggested that her conduct reinforced an image built carefully over many years, an image centered on duty, discipline, and service rather than personal ambition. At the same time, the partnership between William and Catherine appeared stronger than ever. Throughout every stage of the conflict, they presented a united front that many observers found impossible to ignore. Their ability to remain aligned under pressure became a recurring theme in discussions about the future of the monarchy. Challenges that might have exposed weakness instead highlighted trust. Moments that could have created division instead reinforced unity. By the end of the controversies, many believed they had not simply weathered a storm together. They had emerged from it more resilient than before. Inside palace circles, reports of changing dynamics continued to circulate. Experienced insiders spoke of subtle but meaningful shifts in perception. Respect that had once been assumed was now earned in a more visible way. Influence that had previously been questioned appeared increasingly secure. The events surrounding the dispute did not alter official titles or constitutional roles, but they did affect how many individuals viewed the people involved. And in institutions built upon trust, reputation often carries enormous weight. For Camilla, however, the aftermath reportedly proved far more complicated. Regardless of how one interpreted the controversy, there was little doubt that the outcome created challenges she could not easily ignore. Supporters worked to defend her position, while critics pointed to the final decision as evidence of changing priorities within the royal household. The contrast was striking. A situation that may have begun as an effort to shape the future had instead generated difficult questions about influence and authority. Yet, Perhaps the most important consequence extended far beyond any individual figure. The controversy sparked conversations about the future of the monarchy itself. It highlighted the ongoing balance between tradition and change. It demonstrated how personal decisions can carry institutional consequences. Most importantly, it reminded many people that leadership is often defined not during moments of comfort, but during moments of pressure, uncertainty, and risk. As years pass, the details of the original dispute may eventually fade from public memory. Rumors will be replaced by new headlines. Debates will give way to new controversies. But for those who followed the story closely, one impression is likely to remain. This was not merely a disagreement over a private request. It became a defining chapter in the public perception of a future queen and the values she represents. In the end, the demand that was meant to reshape royal tradition achieved the opposite result, cementing Princess Catherine's reputation as one of the most determined and respected figures the modern monarchy has seen. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.